TV, and I am Fikradishte Zavdu, and today I have Antene Tesfahun, a political science and international studies lecturer at Bahar Dar University with me. And today we are going to talk about the world pandemic, which is coronavirus or COVID-19, and how it's affecting the world politics order. Antene Tesfahun, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
Well, I'm good. I've been at home for the most part of probably these 3 weeks, a month. I'm trying to stay safe and stay home so that I could help save lives, I guess. So yeah, I'm fine.
What else
Thank
do
you
you
for
do
asking.
to prevent yourself from the coronavirus?
Well, I stayed home for the most part, and I think I have listened to all those advices and suggestions, recommendations, orders given by the health professionals, and I've been washing my hands incessantly. And I have been trying to maintain distance with people, not touching and those things. So I think I have done well so far, and the rest is up to the Almighty God. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for being with us today again.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about how the outbreak or the pandemic, coronavirus or COVID-19, is affecting the world politics or the global order of the power.
Well, this is a pandemic, a global pandemic. That means it is highly contagious and deadly. But most importantly, it means it overwhelms systems. It overwhelms particularly the health systems of even the most established, even the most wealthy countries of the world. That's why it is a pandemic. I don't think it means it is way more deadly than the others, but it's about how much challenge it puts on the systems that have been put forth to deal with the health crisis or health issues. So now it's like we are into our 4th month of this, since the outbreak started of this pandemic. And we are in some kind of a panic. People are dying and millions have already been infected. Countries have closed their borders. Cities have locked down their population. The economic movement, the economic activities of production, consumption and distribution or trade has been halted. And so the impact that this pandemic is having on the global political economy is huge. If you remember, in 2002, 2003, the SARS epidemic, some $50 billion were lost, but only 700 people died, 8,000 people infected. And in 2014, 2015, the MERS epidemic, it was 8 billion, only 800 or something infected. Now we have 2-3 million, and it's still not at the plateau. We have not flattened the curve yet, and so it's climbing up the numbers. The lockdowns, the global reach of this pandemic is at the level of the 1918 Spanish flu, the quote-unquote Spanish flu. So we can imagine how much economic devastation this pandemic is going to have. It's not only about the number of days, the number of infections, but the forced hold to the economic transactions that this pandemic has forced, that would have very drastic impact in the coming months and years, probably decades too. So yes, this pandemic is going to change things in very different ways. I was reading this Politico article. It has been 2 weeks, a week or 2 weeks ago, and they have brought some 30 scholars, macro thinkers from different fields, from politics, from society, from economics, psychology, technology, different fields.
Like a think tank group.
They are not think tanks. They are from different universities. They are macro thinkers, and those people who have been writing books in different fields. And they were trying to make this book of change kind of thing, where they asked these people to talk about what this change could mean, what change could this coronavirus or COVID-19 could bring about in its aftermath. And there were different interesting speculations. There are speculations because the changes are yet to be seen. Whether we'll still be here is yet to be seen again. So from those things, from the things that those people were saying, they agreed that the world is going to be changed permanently and in different fields. The technology is becoming more and more important and indispensable. Big government is going to come back, but mostly they focus on the US and the Western world. But the bottom line is this virus is going to change things. The world is not going to be the same in the aftermath of the coronavirus. Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the politics, the world is changing. It's obvious.
Yes.
Let's go back to the source of it. There are arguments about the virus, and like some countries are blaming others about it. Some say like it comes from China. Even the U.S. President Donald Trump called it a China virus. Mm-hmm. Some argue about it like it is an unfortunate incident that comes from bats and pangolins in the market of Wuhan. Mm-hmm. Or some says like it is cooked in the laboratories of the American military. Mm-hmm. So like, can we say, is there any conspiracy politics behind the pandemic?
Yes. I would say there is. I'm not saying the conspiracy theories that were put forth are true or not. I don't know about that. But the politics of the conspiracy theories is happening. We are seeing it because politics is about engagements. It doesn't necessarily have to be true to impact the politics, right? If politics gave some ear to conspiracies that has to remain marginal, conspiracies that has to be left on the fringe, then that politics is affected by conspiracy. So yes, I would say the politics of conspiracy is part of, has become a reality. And that is because these two global powers, the United States is a truly global power. China is a regional power that is trying to project globally. And so between these two, there has been competition. In the past decade, at least, there was competition between the US and China. And they have been competing in different fields, in the fields of technology, in the fields of artificial intelligence, which China is supposed to lead. And so it is obvious that these two will compete when it comes to global health, right? So the conspiracy theories are just the extensions of this competition, the extensions of these, the politics of competition between China and the United States. And so what makes it more acute, what makes these conspiracy theories more pronounced and more acute is the virus started in China, and now it's affecting the United States more than any other country. And so it is going to, these conspiracies are going to stay. They are not going to be resolved soon, and we're not going to forget about them. They are going to be part of this global power struggle between the two. They are going to be infused into the narratives of the both sides. Trump saying China did that, China, it started in China, so it's a Chinese virus. And the Chinese leaders, they're saying, no, it's the American military that created this virus. We're never going to know the truth about this, because we are living in what seems to be a post-truth world. And so even though someone is telling the truth, there is no way of ascertaining one single truth about this pandemic. Probably some 50, 60 years later, as history we may know. But for now, these conspiracies are going to remain. And there is also another conspiracy that has gained traction, particularly in the United States. If you have been following the news, there are some demonstrations happening in many states in the United States that go as far as to claiming that this pandemic is a lie, COVID-19 is a lie, or at least it's just like flu, right? And so the conspiracy is that this pandemic is man-made, and the purpose is so that they can put some microchips into human body when they claim they have gotten the vaccine. Yes. Now things are getting so crazy that even those people with their accusation of Bill Gates of leading this conspiracy, they are so what I'm saying is there are different conspiracy theories, and they are accentuated because of the old rivalry between the United States and China.
So many conspiracy theories, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but whether it is a biological weapon which is costly in some laboratory, or whether it's an unfortunate incident or a virus came from the wild animal or a contact with wild animal, China and US are like handling it in a different manner. For example, China is like providing aid for almost 82 countries in the world to combat or to prevent this pandemic. And in the other hand, in the contrary, the US government or Donald Trump is threatening to cut the fund of WHO because of its relation with China. So like, is that even rational, like by this time, cutting the fund of World Health Organization because it's relation to coronavirus or like the pandemic? And in other hand, the head of the WHO, Tedros Adhanom, is like claiming to get death threats and discriminations and other insults. Mm-hmm. And because of that, Trump is threatening to cut all the funds to WHO. Mm-hmm. Like with this pandemic and a cutting of fund to World Health Organization, is that even like a helping solution?
No, it is really bizarre decision. I mean, it's not unexpected, but it's still bizarre that President Donald Trump decided to cut funding for the WHO. The United States is still the prime and the leading contributor for the United Nations. The World Health Organization is a UN agency, and so that means World Health Organization heavily depends on the United States funding. And the choice of President Trump to make World Health Organization as a chip, as a dice in their confrontation with China, I think that is counterproductive, to say the least. But again, what the Chinese were doing was not fine. They were, or what the World Health Organization was doing. What we know now is the World Health Organization was heavily depending on Chinese information, the information that the Communist Party gives. Instead of doing its due diligence and trying to alert the world about the issues of the pandemic, the World Health Organization chose to believe what the Communist Party tells them to. What the Communist Party says goes. And they were praising the Communist Party. They were insisting that trade and travel to China should not be cut for quite a long time since the pandemic started. And so they erred on that part. They erred probably because they were influenced by, by Chinese diplomacy. But whatever the case, they have erred. And they need to be accountable for that one. They need to take responsibility. However, to cut the funding, the primary and the major funding for a global healthcare institution at this particular juncture, at the time when the world is facing this global disaster, I just don't understand the mindset of President Trump, and I don't think it is helping in any way. But what it shows you is that the way these two countries are acting, the way they are fighting their fights, has escalated, and they are not shying away from using this international crisis to maneuver each other, right? But one thing, there is a silver lining in this argument. I don't think Donald Trump represents the United States in the full sense. He is the president of the United States, and so he represents the United States. But when he goes out of office, I don't think we will have people similar to him in office. This probably is heavily dependent on the idiosyncrasy of Donald Trump rather than the long-term foreign policy strategies and foreign policy goals, objectives of the United States government. And so if he's gone, I don't think this kind of behavior will stick. But on the other hand, there is this falling down and coming up of two powers. The Chinese trying to project their power from their regional base in Southeast Asia into the global forum, and the United States trying to maintain its grip on the global power. And so when the two are going up and down at this time, because of Donald Trump, because of his call for America first and his wanton nationalism, mostly economic nationalism, he is trying to pull back American projection of power. And those things, the way America contributes to the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and to the different parts of the world, those contributions, the loans, aids, and so on, those things are the way America projects its power. And by cutting them off, what Trump is doing is trying to shrink America's power. And China is trying to fill the void. But China is not doing a good job at this particular time. When we talk about order, let me revert back and try to give this a broader perspective. When we talk about international order, we are talking about a regime, right? The totality of rules, the totality of institutions, actors, different governments, non-governments, businesses, and so on actors. That is what a regime is, and an international order is an international regime. This international order, the international regime that we have now, has been around for about 70 years. It was set up or established in the 1950s or late 1940s by the leadership of the United States. After the Europeans were devastated by World War II, the United States took the helm and it started to create this international order. How was it created? There are pillars. This order is not some random creation. There were pillars of this international order that are pillars of American power. Those are, there is ideology, the ideology of capitalism. At first it was embedded capitalism, Keynesian capitalism, until the late 1970s and early 1980s, and then the neoliberal capitalism. Capitalism mutated itself after winning particularly over socialism. Politically, there was the United Nations with its different agencies, and then in addition to that there was NATO, a security arrangement, there was the G20, the G8, different political arrangements, the World Economic Forum, the Doha Forum. Those are parts of this regime, parts of this international order that smoothens, that oils this machine, to move smoothly. And then there is these economic institutions.
Okay.
The unholy trinity, they call them. The World Bank, which is about the economies, the IMF about the finance and the monetary systems, and the World Trade Organizations, WB, IMF, WTO, trade issues. And so the United States, with its European allies, had a firm grip on these different pillars. Mm-hmm. Socio-culturally, there is Euro-American culture that is supposed to be spread throughout the world, and the globalization of that culture. It's not about globalization of culture, it's about globalization of Euro-American culture, right? That is how this international order was created. That is how it is sustaining. The Soviets, they tried to be part of it, but because of these mechanisms, because of these parts of the machine that they have no control of, they fall. They could not cope with they could not confront or face the United States with these levers. In addition to its own economy, vast economy, in addition to its control of all the world oceans, the international order, it has those different pillars. And so, when we talk about changes in international order, we are talking about how these pillars could be changed, right? Whether these pillars would fall down, they would crumble, and then other pillars would come up by another actor, or these pillars will remain and another actor will take the keys. Right? That is another. Or the third way orders change is they will mutate. Right? They will not be changing. They will not be changing hands only. It won't be crumbling, but it will mutate and come up with a different type.
The third alternative.
Type of order. The third alternative, the third scenario that may happen. And in my belief, I don't think this neoliberal world order is going to go so easily, no. If we see what they are doing, whatever happened, 9/11, right? Terrorism, what happened? They invaded a country, they destabilized the whole region, and then they transfer wealth from the poor to the rich through the energy industry and through the military industrial complex. And the 9/11 was part of this neoliberal agenda, neoliberal enterprise of wealth transfer from the poor to the rich. And then 2008, financial crisis. What happened? The rich were bailed out by the taxpayers' money, another transfer of wealth. Now, 2020, the pandemic. What happened? $2 trillion from the taxpayers to the rich. This neoliberal world order is getting more and more. It has been that way for 40 years, but it has been getting more and more greedy, but still going. It is still strong. I don't think whatever happens with this coronavirus or its aftermath will change that, because the mutation that this neoliberal international order has been undertaking is that it is becoming less and less nationalistic. It's becoming not about countries.
It becomes global, and it's well established, and it's firm.
Yes, and it doesn't have some emotional, sentimental attachment to any nation. The United States is the home for this neoliberal global elite because there is a fertile ground there, because the economy is there. But at some point, these people, these corporations, they may leave the United States. They have been leaving the United States to China. That's why China became very powerful economically. And so now these corporations have no allegiance to any nation. And therefore, what I am thinking, or what I sometimes believe, I mean, I cannot believe one thing about this or that, particularly in this very complex topic as world order. But sometimes I think it's not going to be China replacing the United States. Right? It's about where this global elite, some writer I like, refers to them as the electronic herd. The people with money, they don't even know each other. They have a company, these corporations. Mm-hmm. They are part of a company, but they don't know who is running that company. And so they make the decisions. They can go. What matters is a profit. So the world order may not necessarily in a way that we expected, in a way that we have seen it in history. This may be a new way. But what I think is the neoliberal global order will continue. But who will be at the helm? That will be anybody's guess. But for some time, the United States will stay on power. Like I said, if China had to, it needs to take more and more global responsibilities. The United States is shrinking its reach, and China needs to go out and try to fill the void, try to recruit more and more allies.
Which it is not doing now. But
yes, that is what China is failing. They have tried to come up with this alternative to the World Bank, the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They have tried. I don't think it has been successful because the major establishment is not gonna let that happen. But China has been trying. But now, at this particular juncture, where it could have come out as a global stabilizing force, a global benevolent power, their pittiness, particularly towards black people, showed me personally that China is not ready.
Yeah, and as you say, like the coronavirus or like this pandemic is not going to change the world's order.
It will change the way we do things. It will probably change the way we see things, the way we perceive how the world is ordered. That means the challenge for the neoliberal global order will come from within countries, from the bottom up. Right? There will be some quests for reforms, probably revolutions, somewhere in some places.
There will be some changes.
Yeah.
Right? Some changes, but like we are not going to have like a grand change in the world, right?
I don't
a system
think so.
change is not expected.
I don't think there would be a system change because of this pandemic. The way it's going, well, China has shown that it's indispensable. That's why we have this global pandemic, because China is indispensable. Nobody could cut off flights to China or from China. Nobody could lock their borders to China. China was very important. China is indispensable. So everybody opened their doors, and in the process they got the virus. That shows how far China has come. But for China to continue in this trajectory and take the help, it needs to do more. It's not doing so. I don't expect a system change, but I expect this coronavirus or this global pandemic and the economic impacts it will have in its aftermath, they are going to be the seeds of change in the future, change that comes from the bottom up. It's not going to be the American government fighting against the Chinese government or the Japanese and the Russians. No, it's going to be the American working people rising up against the American corporations. You know, it's going to be a reverse to that kind of internal interaction. And through time, the system will change. Either it will become a very corporate governance, right? Very dystopian future, or it will go back into a more embedded capitalism where inequality is somehow decreased.
You know what? While the world is panicking about the pandemic and everybody's worried, and people think like it's a disaster, that they are not going to break through from it, but the American and the Chinese people make it about them.
Yes.
You know, instead of like thinking about the people and helping people, they make it like their politics. You know, like fight for power. So, like, as a personal opinion and as a political analyst, to which side does the power goes? Is it going to be China or is it going to be the U.S.?
Well, the way that they make it, the way they are playing politics with this pandemic.
It is gambling with people's life, by the way.
Yes, it is quintessential to superpower rivalries. Right?
Yeah.
It shows you that the United States is not alone anymore at the top. There is another dog coming up. And that is particularly because of Donald Trump, and because he has been abandoning the responsibilities of a superpower. Superpowers have some responsibilities they have to discharge graciously. You know, they may not necessarily benefit from it, but they have to do it because this system is created in their image, and so the sustenance, the survival of the order, the survival of the system is to their benefit. So they have to deal with anything that can challenge the system. And so the United States as a superpower has to do that. But Donald Trump, you know, somehow it seems some pettiness. I understand where he's coming from. Right? He represents a disenfranchised Americans, significant number of Americans that are disenfranchised by these global elite in the coasts and so on and so on. So I understand to whom he is pandering, but then when you become the leader of such an indispensable country like the United States, those decisions he is taking in the rhetoric seems to be very petty. And so it is his pettiness that has created this void at the international system and gave China a room. But, like I said, I will repeat it, China doesn't seem to be ready. However, it's not ready to take over the international responsibilities. It doesn't have enough clout internationally. It has a very, very well established clout, but not enough as to taking over the pillars of this international order. It is economically dependent on the United States. It borrows, it gives money for the United States in trillions, but it's still dependent on the US. The US economy crashes, China's economy crashes.
Yeah, actually, we already have like the stock market crash.
Yes, and which China will suffer a lot. So you cannot compete to the level you want while you are at the same time dependent on your competitor, right? So the power will remain in the global elite situated in the United States.
I hope, they don't make it about themselves, like, we cannot see Donald Trump as an individual. He is the president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
So, like, when he decides something, I cannot say, like, Trump decided this, that the U.S. decided this.
Yes.
So it's going to affect, like, the order of everything in the world of politics. So, like, what he did or what he's threatening to do on World Health Organization is so childish, and we don't expect that from, like, a president of a country, any country, for that matter.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I said I understand where he's coming from, right? That is because this neoliberal global order, for the last 40 years, it has been taking every chance it gets, every disaster, every jubilation, everything to amass wealth, to transfer wealth from the poor to the rich, particularly in the United States and in some European countries like Britain. What it does is, something happened, then there is tax cut. The rich won't be taxed, and so money goes to the rich. Something happens, the poor cannot file bankruptcy. The rich file bankruptcy. The rich has taken over government, particularly the US government, is beholden to corporations whom they give campaign contributions. And so what his supporters are saying are, we don't care about our global power. The global power is not America's global power. The global power is some global elite that is in New York and in
some other
California,
country,
and in Frankfurt, Tokyo. Those are the global elites. It's not an American power, what they are saying. So America is being used by this global elite to, fund its enterprises, to fund its activities. And so they are saying no. So he has thrown his lot with these folks, and so now he speaks to them, he speaks for them. He is part of the global elite, personally, but it's just it's ironic and sometimes funny, but that's the case. That is where his decisions or his rhetoric comes from, and that's why these people support him, because of the global neoliberal elites that have been putting damage on particularly Americans.
So let's say, like, let's hope we will go through this pandemic together.
Mhm.
We're going to pass this thing together, like, peacefully, without like so many disasters.
Yes.
And let's wrap up. Is there anything left that you want to say?
Well, I mean, we're gonna see changes. We don't know how long this is going to take. We don't know the reach of its impact. It may be huge, or it may just be news of the months, right? In 3 months, we will probably forget about it.
Yeah.
Economically now, but as a disease. So the thing is, we have to put it in perspective. We don't have to panic, but at the same time, we don't have to just say, you know, it's something we shouldn't worry about. We have to worry sufficiently. We have to worry optimally.
We are
without
panicking, by the way.
without panicking, because
You know what? People are panicking because fear is contagious.
yes, it is. The disease and fear both are contagious, and we need to think about the world at large, not just in space but in time, in the past. And when you put what we are having now in that broader perspective, then it's just, you know, some glitch in the pattern, in the history, in the time-space matrix that we are passing through. And so when you think of it that way, you know, we are gonna pass through this. But again, we have only one life. If we don't take care of that life, then that stops. The whole world stops. Time stops. And so balance these two. As an individual, take care of yourself, but at the same time, as a citizen of the world, you know, be sure that the world will survive this. It's not gonna end.
So, like, it is going to be over soon. It's going to be over, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But don't try to be casualties, right?
No, that's exactly my point. Don't be casualties of this glitch. You know, find some way and pass this glitch.
Good.
Yeah, stay safe.
Antenet Esfahun, lecturer of political science and international studies at Bahar Dar University. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank
This is Amhara TV, and you are watching like a talk about coronavirus.